So I have finally gone through the installation of my first fat tire. This one was installed in the front, and the tire I'm talking about is the GreenSpeed Scorcher tire. This is the trike company that makes its own racing tires for the front of their trikes. And I have described this tire in a previous video. If you're curious about the details, check out that video. This video is just going to be about the installation. Here is my original front tire installed on my electric front wheel. I decided to do the installation on the original wheel, so that if something didn't work out, I would still have the original tire installed with the electric hub, and I could always switch back to the original configuration. My main concern about upsizing the tire, either in the front or the rear, was that it would be too tight with the existing mud guards. I have custom mud guards, but they are of a standard size, and here you can see that there is a folding hook or folding clip that is attached not to the fork but to the mudguard. So if you're gonna take off the mudguard because the new bigger tire is too tight, then you're gonna have to do something about folding the bike, because the bike needs either this hook or some other solution to be able to hold as you fold the front toward the back. As you can see, the Brompton company does sell bicycles without the fenders, so if you have no mud guards, there are clips that are available either from the Brompton company, or there are a gazillion different third-party sources from which you can have all kinds of designer clips coming in all kinds of different colors. Here is my original front wheel that was installed on the bike before I electrified it. This was quite a straightforward installation, not much to say about it. I want to say a few words about the tools I used. As you can see, I have plastic tire arms, which are better than the metal. I think they are less likely to tear up a tire or puncture an inner tube, so I prefer them over the metal. I also have a specific Brompton all-in-one tool which fits right onto the nuts and bolts and so many sizes all over the bicycle. In addition, I also had to use a millimeter sized 17 millimeter European sized wrench, which fits right onto the electric wheel that I have. The electric wheel is not exactly the same thing as the original wheel that came with the bike. It comes with a bigger and tougher axle, bigger washers, and there's a bigger nut attached to it as well. The combination wrench I am showing on the right side is the one you should not use. You should try to avoid using a combination wrench, because it can seriously screw up the nut that you are working on. The problem is it's not really precise and it's not steady. So especially when you apply a lot of force, it can come kind of loose, and if you loosely sort of twist it around the nut, it can destroy the shape of the nut. So it's not too expensive to get a new nut, but I just don't recommend using them. The inner tube I used was the standard sized Schwalbe inner tube that comes with the standard sized Schwalbe Marathon tire for this bicycle. The upsized tire calls for something a little bit bigger, but the difference is only 2 millimeters, so I just used the original inner tube. I have seen no problem at all, even after test riding the bike using the standard sized inner tube. So this is really just a very small upsizing as far as tire size is concerned. So I don't think you need to get a new inner tube. If you already have standard sized inner tubes, you should just use those. The tire was very easy to install on my standard front wheel, and this is a comparison shot. You can see how it looks next to the original standard sized tire. You see that it's a little bit more fluffy, but not a monster tire. It doesn't look like a fat tire or even a gravel tire. Another thing you can see is that above the valve there is a small dimple that you can clearly see, and that suggests that the quality of the manufacturer is not quite as high as what you would expect with a Schwalbe tire. Schwalbe tires have impeccable symmetry, and I've never seen anything like a dimple such as the one you see here, but it's not a big deal. Still, for an expensive tire that costs twice as much as an equivalent Schwalbe, it's not perfect. Other than this one issue, I think the tire looks really good. It has a lot of reflective paint on the side, so it should be a lot more visible than the other tire I have. And it's also very noticeable that it has no tread on it. I've never had a racing tire like this, so I'm really curious as to how it's going to ride. And here is the wheel with the new tire installed on the bicycle. I was absolutely shocked that I did not need to remove the fender. I rolled the wheel left and right. I felt absolutely no sticking point. So it looks like you can install the tire with the standard fender. The only thing I would say is, if you feel that the fender is a bit sticky and you don't want to remove it, you can definitely raise it. You can use a drill to enlarge the hole that attaches the fender to the fork. And if you need to bend that little wire that holds the fender, that's really not a big deal. A lot of people have done it. Here is a panoramic view of the bicycle. As you can see, I'm sorry for the low light situation. This is not the best video. As you can see, I have the nickel plated Brompton. It's a pretty good looking tire. It looks a bit bulkier, which actually makes it look better for the bike, in my opinion. And here is a close-up of the mudguard. You can see that there is still at least a 3 to 5 millimeter gap between the tire and the fender. If this disturbs you, if you feel it's going to get dirty and disturb you from riding, you can just remove the fender. But in my case, I don't see a point. I keep my bike very clean, so I don't think there's going to be a problem. And this means if you can install the tire in the front without having to remove the fender, then it's very likely you can, in fact, it's totally guaranteed that you can install the same tire in the rear as well, and you're not going to have a problem. And here's a profile shot after an installation. I think the new tire looks really good. The fact that it doesn't leave that much of a gap between the fender and the tire surface actually looks a lot better. I think it looks a lot more professional and sort of cool. And I just can't wait to install something in the rear as well. Although I really would like to install the 2-inch wide Schwalbe Big Apple. And according to my research, it can be installed, but in that case the rear fender has to go. And if I remove the rear fender, I'm probably going to remove the front fender as well. But if you choose to go with the GreenSpeed tire front and rear, you can't go wrong. It's a very good looking tire, and it rides really well as well. I took it for a spin. I rode it for just a few miles. I took it on rough surfaces as well. It's much more comfortable than the original 100 psi tire, I can tell you that. But at the same time, because it has no tread and it's not quite the same quality as a Schwalbe, it's probably going to get punctured a lot more than a Schwalbe tire would. Now, I have never had a puncture with a Schwalbe, so I'm really not looking forward to that. And I'm going to be really careful to not ride into glass and sharps. But this is something you may have to put up with if you want a more comfortable, more controlled ride without having to modify the brakes. As far as the speed of the tire and the rolling resistance is concerned, my feeling is inflating it just to 40 psi, which is the minimum on this tire. I actually am experiencing less of a rolling resistance than I had with the standard tire, and the reason for that is probably because it has no tread. So that's just my first impression from the first ride, and I will be posting more videos on my long-term experiences with this tire.